Here we can see the 5 common HTTP methods used when an application communicates with a REST API. First, we have GET. GET is used to retrieve data from the server. Next is POST. POST is used to send data to the server, either for processing or to create something new. Then we have PUT. PUT is commonly used to replace or fully update an existing resource. Patch is slightly different. It is used when we only want to update part of an existing resource. And finally, delete is used to remove a resource from the server. So the HTTP method tells the API what action we want to perform. For LLM APIs, POST is especially important because prompts, messages, and other settings are commonly sent to the AI using a POST request. In this image, we can see the main idea behind HTTP methods. An HTTP method tells the server what action the application wants to perform. For example, the application may want to retrieve information from the server. It may want to create new data. It may need to update existing data. Or it may want to delete a resource. HTTP methods provide a standard way to communicate these different actions. So when a client sends a request to an API, the HTTP method helps the server understand what should happen. In the next sections, we'll look at the most common HTTP methods and understand how each one works. An HTTP request is made up of several important parts. First, we have the HTTP method, such as GET or POST. The method tells the server what action we want to perform. Next, we have the URL, or endpoint. This tells the request where it should be sent. Then, we have the headers. Headers provide additional information, such as the content type and authentication details. Finally, some requests also contain a request body. The body contains the actual data we want to send, often in JSON format. Together, the method, endpoint, headers, and body form a complete HTTP request that can be sent to an API server. Here we can see the 5 common HTTP methods used when working with REST APIs. The first method is GET. GET is used to retrieve data from the server. Next is POST. POST is used to send data, often to create something new or process a request. Then we have PUT. PUT is commonly used to replace or fully update existing data. Next is patch. Patch is used to update only part of an existing resource. And finally, delete is used to remove a resource from the server. Each HTTP method represents a different action. This makes it easy for the API to understand exactly what the client wants to do. Now, let's look at the GET method. GET is used when an application wants to retrieve information from a server. In this example, the client sends a request, get/students. The server receives the request, searches the student database, and finds the available records. Those student records are then returned to the client as the response. The important point is that GET is mainly used for reading or retrieving data. It should normally not change or modify the data stored on the server.
Now let's look at another example of the GET method. Imagine that our application wants to know which AI models are available. The client sends a request, get/models. The API server receives the request and checks its model registry. It then returns a list of available models back to the client application. Notice that we are only requesting information. We are not creating, updating, or deleting anything. That is why GET is the appropriate HTTP method for this type of operation. Now let's look at the POST method. POST is commonly used when an application needs to send data to a server for processing. In this example, the client sends a POST request to the generate endpoint. Inside the request body, we can include information such as the prompt, model settings, and other options. The server receives this data and processes the request using the AI model. Once the processing is complete, the server sends the generated response back to the client. This is why POST is very important for LLM APIs. When we send prompts or messages to an AI model, we will commonly use an HTTP POST request. Now, let's see how a C# application sends a prompt to an LLM API. The application first prepares the prompt and other settings as JSON data. It then sends this information to the LLM API using an HTTP POST request. The POST request carries the JSON data from our C# application to the AI server. The server receives the request and passes the prompt to the AI model for processing. The model analyzes the prompt and generates an appropriate response. That generated response is then returned through the API, back to our C# application. So the basic flow is simple. C# application, POST request, JSON prompt, LLM API, AI model, and generated response. This is the basic communication pattern we will use when building LLM applications with C# and .NET. Now, let's understand why POST is commonly used with LLM APIs. When we send a request to an AI model, we usually need to send more than just a simple prompt. The request may contain the user prompt, the conversation messages, the model we want to use, and settings such as temperature and output limits. We may also include tool definitions and other generation options. All of this information can be organized as JSON data and placed inside the request body. The application then sends this data to the LLM API using a POST request. The AI model processes the information, generates an appropriate answer, and sends the response back to our application. So remember, POST is important for LLM APIs because it allows us to send structured input to the AI for processing. Now let's look at the PUT method. PUT is commonly used when we want to replace or fully update an existing resource. Imagine that the server already contains a student profile. The profile has information such as the student's name, age, and course. Now our application sends a PUT request with a new version of that profile. The server receives the new data and replaces the existing resource with the new representation. So rather than changing just one small field, PUT is commonly used when we want to send the complete updated resource. A simple way to remember this is PUT means replace. Later we'll compare this with patch, which is normally used to update only part of a resource. Now let's look at the patch method. Patch is commonly used when we want to update only part of an existing resource. For example, imagine we have a student profile with a name, age, and course. Suppose we only want to change the student's age. Instead of sending the complete profile again, we can send a patch request containing only the information that needs to change. The server receives the request, updates the age, and keeps the other information unchanged. So the important idea is, patch means partial update. A simple way to remember the difference is, PUT replaces the resource, while patch modifies only part of it. Now let's understand the important difference between PUT and patch. Both methods can be used to update an existing resource, but they are normally used in different ways. With PUT, we commonly send the complete updated resource. The existing resource is then replaced with the new representation. With patch, we only send the specific information that needs to change. For example, if we only want to change the student's age, we can send just the new age using patch. The name and course can remain unchanged. So a simple way to remember this is, PUT means complete replacement, and patch means partial modification. This difference is very useful when working with REST APIs.